Hello and welcome to Trump News. The former president of the United States, Donald Trump, became the first candidate to hit the campaign trail for the 2024 election on Saturday, declaring that he was more angry than ever as he attempted to launch his sputtering bid for the White House. In an effort to dispel concerns about a lackluster campaign and voter Trump fatigue, Trump made his way through South Carolina and New Hampshire, which holds the first-ever Republican primary. He addressed the annual meeting of the New Hampshire State Republican Party. "We need a president who is ready to hit the ground running on day one, and boy, am I hitting the ground," he said. The media stated, "He is not participating in rallies. He hasn't run for office. He might have skipped that step. I'm now more committed and enraged than ever before." The comment was met with cheers and applause from the audience. More than 2 months ago, Trump gave an address at his Mar-a-Lago club in Florida that was widely criticized for its lack of sparkle and swagger, officially launching his bid for the White House. The one-time president, who used to fly in luxury on Air Force One with the world's most amazing military at his disposal, found himself speaking on Saturday from a basic wooden lectern at a Salem High School auditorium due to the humble nature of America's primary system. An unusual move for a man who initially ran for office as an anti-establishment outsider promising to drain the swamp. He later presented his South Carolina campaign leadership team at the state capitol in Columbia. The stark contrast between these two events and Trump's raucous rallies suggests an effort to demonstrate to Republicans that he can be a more disciplined and conventional politician at any time. After 4 years of turmoil in the White House that culminated in the deadly January 6 insurrection at the U.S. Capitol, Newsmax, a conservative television network, described his performances as measured and presidential. These old-fashioned terms are likely to make many Americans roll their eyes. However, some aspects of Trump, now 76, remain unchanged. He made his usual dubious claim that thousands of people were outside the packed venue as he entered the New Hampshire event to the tune of Lee Greenwood's "God Bless the USA." He quickly used nicknames like Crazy Nancy Pelosi and Cryin' Chuck Schumer to mock Democrats. He couldn't resist an early swipe, despite the advice of many Republicans to forget his big. As someone who has won the New Hampshire presidential primary not once but twice, and by the way, I think we also won 2 general elections, okay, if you want to know the truth, and I believe it very strongly in a lot of other places as well, I also believe it very strongly in many other places. The comment was met with applause from the audience. The topic of energy independence and Hunter Biden's laptop were just a few of Trump's later favorites. Before criticizing transgender individuals' participation in women's sports, he declared, "We're going Marxist." He advocated for gas cars and gas stoves over electric vehicles. In some opinion polls, Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, has emerged as Trump's primary rival, making him more vulnerable among Republicans than at any time since 2015. However, the ex-president casually denied that he will face significant opposition in the primary. "We are so much ahead in the polls, we will win, and we will win a lot." Later, in Columbia, Trump made the announcement that his campaign in South Carolina would be led by South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster. McMaster's frequent golf partner Senator Lindsey Graham and other team members appeared on stage with the former president, including Congressman Joe Wilson, who in 2009 heckled President Barack Obama during a speech by yelling, "You lie." At the time, Wilson was widely derided, but Trump stated on Saturday, "Congressman Joe Wilson, as you spoke in Congress, that voice was so beautiful. It struck me as brilliant. Observe, that was carried out with sincerity. You took some heat at the time, I don't know if you know it or not, but people loved you for that because it showed that you were honest, dedicated, and loved your country." Trump rambled on about 100 topics, promising to halt an invasion at the southern border and restore election integrity. He made the unsubstantiated claim that the actual number of people crossing it could be 15 meters, with many of them coming from mental institutions and prisons. By picking fights with corporations like Disney and requiring teachers to remove books from classrooms, DeSantis has made political capital out of Florida's culture wars issues. Trump wanted to demonstrate that he will not be beaten on that ground. He stated, to enthusiastic applause and cheering. We are going to put an end to the left-wing radical racists, perverts, and racists who are attempting to indoctrinate our youth and remove their Marxist hands from our children. We are going to defeat the ideology of the cult of gender and reaffirm that God created men and women. Men will not be permitted to participate in women's sports. Additionally, Trump asserted that, if elected president, he would negotiate a peace agreement within 24 hours and that the United States is at the brink of World War III. He stated, "There is nobody to complete that deal, which is awaiting completion." Trump attempted a bizarre riff on the idea that every day in America is like April Fool's Day, with borders open when they should be closed, Democrats opposing voter ID, the military becoming woke, men participating in women's sports, and the United States begging other nations for oil rather than using its own. It ought to be the other way around. April Fools, correct? Because they were among the first to hold their nomination contests, New Hampshire and South Carolina are regarded as potential kingmakers. Republican Governor Chris Sununu has stated that he is discussing a primary run in New Hampshire, and Senator Tim Scott is seen as a potential candidate in South Carolina. A co-founder of the anti-Trump Lincoln Project, Rick Wilson, is of the opinion that the events on Saturday will put pressure on rival candidates to show their hand. Kristi Noem attacking Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley making noises on Fox, and all these other not-so-subtle pre-game signals of what's to come are all indications that the base will start paying attention to Trump again, and Trump is aware of that. Wilson continued, on the Republican side, each of the other candidates for president must start from scratch. They must all begin with zero. Each must establish a campaign organization, staff, and team. They all lack star power and name recognition to some extent. Outside of a very small group of Republican mega-donors, even DeSantis is not a well-known figure. Trump will be able to begin rolling up some of these early states as we watch everything fall into place. Trump will still win the Republican nomination, according to Wilson. That won't be good for the party or anyone else, but given his structural advantages over the base and the other candidates' ability to divide up the non-Trump vote, it will be over before it even gets started. We will have a primary that is less exciting than most people think. However, the peculiar circumstance of a one-term president who has been impeached twice and is attempting to regain the presidency raises a number of unique uncertainties. Frank Luntz, a pollster who has advised a number of Republican campaigns, views Wilson in a manner that is opposite of his own. He thinks that Trump is completely dishonest. Luntz stated, "How much DeSantis has gained and how much Trump has fallen is a big deal. Because that's the closest parallel, DeSantis is so far ahead of where Barack Obama was against Hillary Clinton in the Democratic primary in 2007. In 2024, he projects that DeSantis will be the Republican candidate